Charity is guaranteed to be rewarded even in the afterlife. I just came across an amazing story that truly personifies the concept of divine providence, the concept of what charity represents, not only in this world, but even in the afterlife. When God gave us the commandments, He has instructed us to follow all the commandments faithfully. But there's one commandment that God said, you can test me. And that is the commandment of charity. And God said those words, that when you give charity, you are guaranteed to be paid back tenfold. Which means how we turn a negative into a positive. We turn diminishing into gain. A negative means that you're taking from your own possessions, you are bringing your resources down, but you get back positive. You may think you are diminishing your wealth, but you're actually gaining. I want to share with you an episode that I was so moved that it really personifies something that you need to know and learn so that you too can appreciate what charity is about, and understanding that everything that happens in this world is with divine providence. So this was a gentleman who lives in Brooklyn, New York, who was driving always upstate New York to the capital in Albany, New York for a certain business meeting. As he's returning his travelings from Albany, New York, the capital, down to Brooklyn, New York, it was a very long road. As he's driving, he began to become exhausted, that he began falling asleep, that he realized that he's going to have to stop and rest. He's looking for a hotel or motel off one of the exits. So off a random exit, coming down from upstate New York, he sees a building that looks like a hotel or a motel. He pulls over, and it's already late at night, and he goes inside to the front desk and says, I would like to rent a room for a night. I'm just so exhausted. I have to head back to Brooklyn, but I just cannot drive anymore. Can I please rent a room? So there is a worker at the front desk says, excuse me, sir, this isn't a hotel. This is a nursing home. So he said, well, do you have maybe a vacant bed that I could stay at? And this maintenance person at the front desk says, sir, this isn't a hotel. I don't have any rooms to give you. He says, maybe one of the rooms, there's a bed. I could just lay down for a few hours. I'll give you a good tip. I'll give you a tip just to find me a bed so I could just lay my head down. So the maintenance guy says, you know what? There's actually a room where the gentleman passed away earlier today, and we moved his body to the morgue. You're welcome to stay in his room, but the manager arrives at 7 o'clock in the morning. As long as you're out by 6 a.m., I'm fine with it. So he says, fine, thank you. He takes out a nice tip, gives it to the maintenance guy, and he shows him to the room. Gets him fresh linen, and as he walks to the room, he looks at the name of the patient, of the individual who was in the room, and he sees the name, and it's a very Jewish name. So he asks this maintenance guy, the security guy, the person who passed away today, is that him? He says, yeah, he passed away, and tomorrow we're going to bury him. He says, where are you going to bury him? He says, well, he has no family, so we're going to bury him right down the street. There is a cemetery where we bury all of our individuals who have no family to claim the body. See, he thinks to himself, this is a Jewish person who's going to be buried in a random cemetery without a Jewish ceremony. So he talks to this gentleman and says, listen, he has no one to claim his body. How about if I claim his body? Let me claim his body, and I'll become his next of kin, because I want to be able to give him a Jewish burial. So the guy says, you really want this? Do you know him? He says, no. Are you related? He says, no. I just got off the exit because I needed a place to rest. He says, really? You want to claim the body? He says, fine. Fill out the paperwork. Go ahead, claim the body. He fills out the paperwork, puts all of his identification and all the information necessary to claim the body. He claimed the body. They went down to the morgue and they transported the body into the custody of this individual, and they put it in his van. So he gets back on the road thinking to himself, wow, what are the chances that I got so exhausted that I would go to this particular place, which isn't even a hotel, and I would go to this particular room, and here I am driving down the highway with a dead corpse in my van. What would happen if I get pulled over by the cops? So he drove the rest of the night down. His adrenaline is already rushing to be able to fulfill such a good deed. And the Talmud writes that there are certain actions that when we do them, we get rewarded in this world. And there's some actions when we do them, we get rewarded in this world and in the next world. One of those actions is helping bring someone to burial. We say it every morning in our prayer to remind us. And not too often do you have a chance to do such a great, grand deed in saving a body from being buried in just a random cemetery without a Jewish ceremony. So he makes his way all the way down to Brooklyn with the dead body in his trunk and in the back of his van. Has no idea who he is, he just has his name. He comes, goes to the synagogue and says, okay, I need to find the mortician, the one who runs the Jewish Burial Society. I need to talk to the head. I have a special mitzvah. And they made some phone calls quickly, and they were able to locate the head of the Burial Society, an elderly rabbi who used to be a rabbi in Westchester, New York. And he calls him up and he says, listen, I have a great mitzvah. I have here a gentleman who has no family members whatsoever. And he was just about to be buried in a non-Jewish cemetery without a ceremony. I claimed his body and I actually have his body with me now. Can you help me bury him? There's no money, there's nothing, there's nobody. So the rabbi listens and says, you know what? Absolutely. As a matter of fact, many years ago, there was a gentleman, one of my members of my congregation, who came to me one day and said, I want to give you some money so you could buy some plots. So in case the indigent, someone who doesn't have any money, who can't afford a place, I want to pay so that person can have a place to be buried. So yes, so I do have some plots available. So why don't you bring him over to the mortuary and let's begin preparing his body, and let's call people together and we'll make a ceremony and we'll bury him. So he drives to the mortuary and they bring the body in on the gurney and they bring him into the preparation room. And the rabbi is there to help with the preparations. It is one of the greatest mitzvahs in Judaism to help prepare a body for burial. A body is so sacred that we actually treat it as it's a Torah. That's how holy it is. And the rabbi begins unwrapping the coverings that was wrapped around this gentleman. As soon as he saw the face of the deceased, the rabbi nearly fainted. The rabbi says, I know him. I know him. He is the gentleman who came to me 12 years ago, and he purchased 12 graves to give away to anyone who's in need. Unbelievable. Yes, he had no children. He had no next of kin. And I lost total contact with him. And I just can't believe it. Here he is. Because of the act of charity that he did by providing graves for people who cannot afford it, God looked out after him to make sure that no good deed goes unrewarded. That here he is not only going to be receiving a respectable funeral, but he's going to be buried in the same grave that he donated many years ago. The rabbi just couldn't believe this, and this is no way to be a coincidence or by chance. This was all by divine providence. This is what God in heaven prepared and destined. So no good deed that we do in life does not go unrewarded, especially when it comes to charity. And this was my takeaway from this story, to realize the more we give, the more we get. That this gentleman, when he purchased those 12 graves altruistically to be a benefactor, to help those who are less fortunate, ended up being the greatest gift that he actually gave to himself. So the next time any one of us are approached to give charity, to be kind, to be generous, do not underestimate how you are going to be rewarded, not just tenfold. It could be to the infinity for your ultimate reward. God bless you. God loves you.